As we explained in the last video, bay'ah is a two-way contract involving both the murid and the Imam. As a religious practice, bay'ah goes back to the lifetime of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his progeny, and the Quran mentions it in numerous verses. Therefore, only those who have given bay'ah to the Imam of the time have access to private discursive spaces and private religious practices offered by the Imam in the Jamatkhanah, while those who do not give this bay'ah are not privy to them. This only makes logical sense because every single Ismaili ritual practice performed in the Jamatkhanah is an expression and an enactment of the Imam-Murid relationship, a relationship that only exists through bay'ah. The act of bay'ah indicates that a person accepts the Ismaili Imam as his or her spiritual master and guide, and accordingly, only after this acceptance does it become appropriate to access the Imam's guidance. It simply makes no sense for someone who has not given bay'ah to participate in the Jamatkhanah practices. Accessing the Jamatkhanah practices without giving bay'ah to the Imam is similar to walking into a store and stealing products without paying for them, or trying to access prescription drugs from the pharmacy without having the doctor's prescription. The 48th Imam of the Ismaili Muslims, Sultan Muhammad Shah Aga Khan III, explained the matter to his community in Kutch Nagalpur over 120 years ago. It is incumbent upon the parents that they should first make their children my murid through the performance of bay'ah. Those who have not offered bay'ah, they have not signed to accept our faith. Just as you sign on an agreement in your business and other dealings, similarly, through bay'ah, I take signature from your soul. The practice of restricting the gathering and prayer space to initiates who have given bay'ah to the master of a particular spiritual interpretation is not unique to the Ismailis. Karim Jiwani, in an article published by the Ismaili UK in March 2006, writes, "Over the course of many centuries, Sufi tariqas, orders, have multiplied and spread all over the Muslim world, from North Africa to the Indian subcontinent. The spread of these tariqas was accompanied by the construction of specific spaces of gathering and their particular forms and expressions of rituals. Elaborate initiation rituals developed, in which the disciple had to pronounce the bay'ah, oath of allegiance to the murshid, and be invested with symbols of their entrance into the order, for example, cloak, hat, etc. Admission to such spaces is usually open to all, but this is not universally true. For instance, Khanakas of the Surawardi order in India are known to restrict participation to those who have given their bay'ah or pledge of allegiance to the Pir or Sheikh of the Sufi order. Furthermore, in some European and American cities where Sufi tariqas are emerging and growing, one can find similar institutions such as Zawiya and Khanaka, often in private, where adherents meet regularly to perform acts of worship that closely resemble tariqa religious practices. The Sufi private spaces, the Ribat, Khanaka, Zawiya, etc., and the Ismaili private space, the Jamatkhanah, are different from the institution of the mosque or masjid. A mosque is a non-denominational space that serves Muslims of the exoteric public domain known as the Sharia. Sufi and Ismaili prayer spaces are private denominational spaces and serve specific communities who participate in the esoteric domain of Islam known as tariqa. This is why Ismailism and the Sufi brotherhoods are called tariqas today. Entrance into a tariqa is only by way of the bay'ah, as explained previously. The philosopher, theologian, and Islamic scholar Sayyid Hussein Nasir writes, "The tariqa or spiritual path, which is usually known as tasawwuf or Sufism, is the inner and esoteric dimension of Islam, and like the Sharia, has its roots in the Quran and prophetic practice. Being the heart of the Islamic message, it, like the physical heart, is hidden from the external view, although again, like the heart, it is the inner source of life and the center which coordinates inwardly the whole religious organism of Islam. The tariqa is the most subtle and difficult aspect of Islam to understand, at the same time that its external effect to be seen in many manifestations of Islamic society and civilization. Most importantly, Tariqa Islam is a higher domain of truth and practice than Sharia Islam. This is because Tariqa Islam is an esoteric spiritual Islam that is explorative, whereas Sharia Islam is an exoteric legal Islam that is prescriptive. So the rules, practices, and norms governing each domain are different. The difference between exoteric legal Islam and esoteric spiritual Islam naturally necessitates separate physical spaces for the people of the Tariqa to practice their forms and levels of Islam. As the late renowned scholar of Islam Shahab Ahmad explains, those capable of higher truths should have available for them existential spaces where they can meet to discourse and transact and otherwise explore in terms of higher truth. The logic of revelation necessitates, in other words, separate physical and social domains of public, seen, physical and social space and private, unseen, physical and social space as differentiated spaces for the social elaboration and operation of spatially differentiated truths and meanings. It cannot be emphasized enough, however, that as a space for discourse, what I am calling private discursive space is very much a social space. That is to say, it is a space not of individual secrecy, but rather a restricted collective space in which for people to gather in private society for discourse and performance of truths not appropriate to unrestricted common and public space and society. When discourse and actions remain in the space of the private high khas, they are unaffected by the normative truths and values of the lower public space, and are in that space governed by the normative truths and values of private high khas space. The Ismaili Jamatkhanah is established by the Imam of the time as the house of the Imam for a specific local Ismaili community. The Quran stipulates that the Prophet should only provide guidance, blessings, and intercession to people after they give him their bay'ah. Therefore, the Quran also lays out a specific protocol for anyone who wishes to enter into the house of the Prophet or the houses of people in general. Surah 33, Ayah 53 of the Holy Quran says, "O you who have believed, do not enter the houses of the Prophet except when you are permitted." Surah 24, Ayah 27 says, "O ye who believe, enter not houses other than your own until ye have asked permission and saluted those in them that is best for you in order that ye may heed what is seemly." In conclusion, while the non-denominational masjids or mosques are public spaces for the rituals of the Sharia, such as the exoteric namaz, salah, the Ismaili Jamatkhanah is a private space reserved for practices of the Ismaili tariqah, and therefore only accessible to murids who have given bay'ah to the Imam. Hence, the present and living Imam of the Ismailis, Maulana Shah Karim al-Hussaini Aga Khan IV, at the Ismaili Center Dubai Foundation Stone Ceremony on December 13, 2003, said, "For many centuries, a prominent feature of the Muslim religious landscape has been the variety of spaces of gathering, coexisting harmoniously with the masjid, which in itself has accommodated a range of diverse institutional spaces for educational, social, and reflective purposes. Historically serving communities of different interpretations and spiritual affiliations, these spaces have retained their cultural nomenclatures and characteristics from Ribat and Zawiya to Khanaqah and Jamatkhanah. The congregational space incorporated within the Ismaili Center belongs to the historic category of Jamatkhanah, an institutional category that also serves a number of sister Sunni and Shia communities in their respective contexts in many parts of the world. Here, it will be a space reserved for traditions and practices specific to the Shia Ismaili Tariqah of Islam."